My name is Kimberly Fudge, and I am a curriculum specialist with Social Studies School Service. You are in the What's the Why session, helping young students understand point of view. So the skill that we'll focus on in this session is understanding point of view in order to prepare students for reading and analyzing text, to improve critical thinking skills, and to help students understand why people have a why for their point of view. We want students to be able to figure out what's the why and why did a person or group feel a certain way. Also to think about, can people have the same point of view but different whys? Working on point of view as a skill provides the opportunity for conversations like, it's okay for people to have a different point of view. It happens all the time. And what happens if you disagree? So what we're going to think about today, digging into point of view, is why it's important for young students to be able to understand people's point of views or the why behind it. So we'll be using some maps and visuals in age-appropriate ways for elementary students to grasp different points of view about the same series of historical events. And we'll be using an upper elementary student grade, like 4 to 5 content in this example, but the strategies could be modified by for K3 as well. And I'm going to stop sharing my video just for a second, just so that I can continue to have a good strength in the internet signal. And I will put it back on at the end. So we're going to use a classic example of content, which everyone is probably comfortable with, but the content really doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at strategies, and we're just going to use the content to look at these strategies. And the content, again, is upper elementary, like 4th, 5th grade, but you can easily modify the strategies that we're talking about for middle school, or even for lower elementary school for much younger students. So we're going to go through the strategies in a format of a lesson, kind of, that you will participate in, and then we're going to debrief about the strategies as we go. So the example lesson that we will use to share ideas for teaching point of view will focus on the choice colonists faced in 1775 as the war broke out with Britain, a topic everyone is familiar with. So if we were doing this with students, the goals that I would have would be, could they describe points of view of different groups? That's the baseline, right? So in this example, can they describe the point of views of the patriots, loyalists, and those who want to stay neutral? Can they analyze these multiple perspectives regarding the American Revolution and assess points of view when different people interpret the same event? And can people witness the same event and have a different point of view? Can people have the same or shared point of view and have completely different reasons why they share it, completely different whys behind it? So we're going to start with an essential question, and I do want you to know that this was prepared before the events such as between Russia and Ukraine. So I don't in any way mean to trivialize anything by this question, but the essential question that we will wrestle with is, would you ever volunteer to fight in a war? What circumstances, if any, would have to exist? Framed within this context, how did the Revolutionary War begin? So essential questions transcend a specific event in our time list. After some background or introduction to a topic, you could also ask students to create their own questions that they would like to try and answer. So today we will explore these questions within the context of the Revolutionary War. So I'm going to, if you give me just a moment, I'm going to post an instruction sheet and a US physical map in the chat box, and take a minute to download it and open in the PDF. So give me 1 second to do that. Okay, and then there's going to be one handout mapping and activity instructions that I just posted, and then I'm going to post one other one, which is going to be the US map. Okay, and if anybody can put in the chat that they were able to receive those, please let me know. Okay, great. So Nicole, there is a link that should be above, because there's some people that saying got them both. There's a link at above that that has a handout mapping activity instructions and then a handout for a US desk map. Can you try to see if you can open it up or download it again? I want to make sure that everybody's able to access it. And Mary, you are most welcome. Yes, it's in the chat. So if you scroll up, you should be able to see it. I sent it to everyone, and it looks like there are people that were able to access it. So it looks like the link should be working. Thank you for confirming, Patricia. Okay, great, thank you. So, okay, so we should have both of these here now. So we'll continue to go. Those are just two references that you guys can look at. So now in the role of the student, we will follow the instructions on the handout with the historical map and complete these steps on a digital US map as we walk through the lessons together. If we had the opportunity of being in person, of course, we would take time to do this on a markable desk map with a map marker. I think these are the steps in the instruction given to the participants for your reference. So we're gonna add a title. We're going to add a map legend, title the legend, use a dash line, and I'll show you this in the next couple of slides. So across the top, we will use the marker entitled the map, Proclamation Line of 1763. Then we will draw a large square box on the top, and that will be the map legend and then they will need room for 5 symbols and words describing the meaning of each. And then they will title the legend of their map, the events that led to the war. So using the picture map, find the proclamation line of 1763. And on the map, we will draw a line of dash to represent this boundary. So this is what we would do on the physical desk map with the students. Then add a dash line in our legend and label it Proclamation Line of 1763. Then we'll add numbers 1 through 4 on separate lines in the legend. And using the picture map would add each of the following events in chronological order into the legend. So the Boston Tea Party, the battles of Lexington and Concord, the Stamp Act protests, and the First Continental Congress. And it'll look like this. in chronological order. And then they would locate the approximate place where each event took place and write its respective number on the markable desk map. So as you see there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 going in where those events took place. So mapping skills are so important, and maps can be a strong visual support to help students to think critically. So having students read map legends can help them visualize as they grapple with content and answer the questions you pose. So asking students questions such as these with the visual support of the map helps students understand that different people or different groups of people had different points of view during the same historical event or time period. So let's all look at the map legend on the handout, and these could be questions posed to your students. Ask students to read the legend on the map, on the picture map. Ask what the blue, red, and yellow sections of the map represent that they'll see in their map legend. Ask if there are any sections, north, middle, or southern, that are completely loyalist, patriot, or neutral. And you can see those with the colors and the boundaries that's set in that map legend. And so they can start to think critically about that. So this step prepares students to think critically and cite evidence on why they think specific people or groups of people had certain points of view. And where do patriots, loyalists, and those remaining neutral live? Did all people around each other disagree or agree? So these are some of the things that you can pose to the students. So I'm going to now add another attachment with a collection of biography cards to the chat, and I'm going to do that now. And we're going to work together and work through these. And so then you're going to open the attachment and pick one person out of the collection to focus on. We want to find 2 reasons that explain the why behind that person's point of view during this historical event, and keep that in mind for just a moment. And I will repeat that in just a second after I put this handout into the chat. So give me one moment to do that as well. And again, I'll give the directions on that in just a second. Again. Okay, so this should be now in your chat. And again, if someone can let me know if they were able to access those. Good, thank you so much. So I'm gonna give everybody just a minute or so to be able to open those up and download them. And then again, what we're going to look at is, I want you to pick one person out of the collection to focus on. And we want to find 2 reasons that explain the why behind that person's point of view during the Revolutionary War. And then we're going to share out at that point. So, and in the chat, I want you to please enter your person's name, just so as a group we know who everyone picked, and kind of make sure that we have a diverse group of people that we picked. If you can put the person's name, and you can do this all in the same message. You don't have to send individual messages for this, but the person's name, which group they're part of, so the loyalist, patriots, or neutral, where they're from or where they live, and any vocabulary words you think apply to your person. So I'm actually going to give you guys about 4 or 5 minutes or so to be able to do that. And then we're going to share out about the reasons. So I'm going to let you guys look at those people in the biography. And again, I want you to enter what you see on the screen into the chat for us. Thank you, Kelly. We have one person already that was able to put their person in and where they lived and what group they were a part of. So once we end the vocabulary, great, thank you. And once we have more people putting that in, then we can. So we have another with the Burns family. Okay. And they thank you for they were neutral because of their religious beliefs. So we're going to actually share out those whys in a second. That's the next thing that we'll do, but we're going to put in that information in the chat right now as far as their name and the group where they live, and then any vocabulary words you can think of. Thank you to those who are able to do that. I know some are still working through and reading through the biographies, so I appreciate it. We're going to give a couple more minutes on this. Great, thank you. Awesome, and it's awesome for others to be able to see the people that they didn't select and the information about them. So that's great. Thank you, guys. We'll give about another minute or two, and then we'll kind of move forward. But if anybody else that's in here now, if they can put in their information about the person that they chose, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Deborah does. She does. Okay, well, if we are not going, if we're going to kind of move forward here, if anybody else wants to put their information in the chat, we can do that. But we're going to move forward here. So now that we've done this work, so let's share out. If we were in person, I'd made this an interactive activity, but with hanging signs for the next thing that we're going to do for the point of view. But let's share out. Let's, if anybody can tell me, their person and two whys behind that, we'd love to hear it.
What do you mean by whys? Why we picked them, or why they chose what they chose?
Yes, why they chose to either be a loyalist, patriot, or to stay neutral.
Okay, so I went with the Barnes family, and they were neutral due to their religious beliefs of being Quakers. I can't think of a second why of that, other than they did support. They didn't really support them, but they did have their crops seized by the Continental Army.
Okay.
And then requested payment later. I found interesting. So, but their why was the religious.
Okay, great. So one reason why people stay neutral in the Revolutionary War is because of their religious beliefs. So great. Thank you for sharing out. Is there someone else that can share with us?
I have very unstable internet. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Oh, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, well, I did the Deborah Sampson,
Okay.
and like she said, she saw, and well, her background was very much in poverty. She was sold into indentured servitude, young person, and then, but she was a really big patriot, and she was um, the Continental Army. So she dressed up like a boy, and then she got caught.
Okay.
So anyway, that's it.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry. It was going as you were talking. It was going out in a little bit, but thank you for prefacing that. So we did catch a little bit of that about Deborah Sampson, but thank you for sharing out about her as well. Is there anybody else that can share out with us? I do know there was there's a biography about an American Indian who decided to stay neutral because they had allies on both sides, and they didn't want to kind of pick a side in the war. So and later it was decided, that they would pick a side because of an unfortunate circumstance. However, that's one of the reasons why they stayed neutral. So one reason why people stayed neutral and their point of view was neutral was because of their religious beliefs, and one was because they had allies on both sides. Is there anybody else that's willing to share out? What I also found interesting was there were two stories about African Americans, one that grew up in slavery and one that did not, and the reasons why they chose to become either patriot or loyalist were different, because one believed in what they said in the Constitution, that everyone was, they believed that they were going to be free, being able to fight for the freedom after that. And so there's different sorts of whys behind different groups of people as well. So this is what we want the students to really focus on regarding that. So we're going to do one other activity. So if we were in person, I kind of would have made this an interactive activity. Just imagine me that I would be hanging signs up that one says patriots, one says loyalists, and one says neutral. And it would be just kind of a big poster board around a room and for each one of those. And I would have you guys, I'm going to give you guys some statements, and I would have you guys look at these statements and decide if it was a patriot's point of view, a loyalist point of view, or neutral. So I'm actually going to upload that handout here. And I have a PDF of statements that represent more whys for the loyalists, the patriots, and those remaining neutral. And I just want to know which of those statements reflect which point of view. So give me 1 second and I'm going to upload that as well. Okay, so that should be uploading now. So if you could let me know if you got the statements. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to look at these statements and to figure out what you think. If the statements, which statements are patriots, which statements are loyalists, and which statements are people who remain neutral. And then we'll come back and discuss that in just a moment. So I'll give you just about 2 minutes to review those. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Can anybody share out any of the statements that they think were specific to the Patriots? And if you'd like to put it in the chat, that's okay as well. And I think someone said the last one, so I'm thinking they're speaking about the last one on the, they considered themselves Americans rather than British. Okay, great.
Number 5, also, that particular one has to do with patriots as well. Now I can't see that I'm back on this screen, but number 5 was a patriot statement as well.
Okay, great. People thought the colonists could rule themselves better than the British did. Okay, great.
Yep.
Anybody else have another one?
I'm gonna say totally number 4 is a pop out patriot.
People disagree with British tax policies. Okay, is there anyone that thought any of those would actually be representations or statements of loyalists? And if not, what would be some statements that the loyalists, that you think would be specific to the loyalists?
Number 6 would be a loyalist. People considered themselves British and did not want to leave the country.
Okay, okay, great. I'm going to check the chat as well. Number 8, they said people did not think that colonies could survive as an independent country. Interesting, yes. And the great thing about these is that it doesn't have to, you don't have to agree, actually. You can listen to the whys. I've even done this presentation in person, and there were some people that actually had some that they thought were the same for some of them. So does anybody else have one for the loyalists?
I was actually going to question you on that one because number 1, as I read it, I could see it as both points of view of the loyalists and the patriots that were dependent on Britain for trade and goods.
I absolutely see there could be more. So it's not a it can be debatable, and it's dependent on how you feel and what you think in your perspective. So absolutely, I've seen that in person as well, that people think that they're the same thing for the Patriots or the Loyalists. So I agree. And what about neutral? So maybe I would say maybe number 2, people worried that that war would disrupt their lives. Would anybody agree with that? And maybe that people knew people on both sides of the conflict. Number 2, let's see, number 2. Yep, people would worry. Yep, that's the one. That's one that we just mentioned. So this is something that I would have had just cut out strips, and then you can post it on Patriots and Loyalists and neutral, and kind of the perspectives, and we can kind of have a discussion about that if we were to do this in person. So thank you for all those who shared out and participated in that. And so the skill that we focused on is understanding point of view. So some ideas to summarize and assess a lesson on point of view might be to ask students to pick and defend one of the positions or assign one as the Loyalist, Patriots, or neutral, and support it with evidence from the lesson that explains the why of that point of view. Something else that you can do is have students write a paragraph explaining a point of view and see if they can get others to agree with them. So as we were just talking about number 1, that's one example that we could do where you thought that number 1 was either someone could have picked Loyalists or someone could have picked Patriots, and see if other people would agree with them with that. And then you can have student pairs and read paragraphs to each other and discuss challenges colonists might have faced trying to keep the peace when friends and neighbors had dramatically different opinions about what to do, which is something that we see all the time. And this also allows to be able to build empathy with the students as well. And so we try to be intentional in our planning to include points of view in underrepresented groups. So these are some ideas that you can include stories of different people and delve into their whys, which may be the same or different dramatically from the whys of historical figures students may be more familiar with. So you could add reading additional historical accounts, or maybe building a biography gallery that students make and hang on the wall in the classroom. So you can also consider some points of view of women, enslaved peoples, and American Indians as well. And Mary, I agree with your statement in the chat. I'm kind of going back and forth, so I just saw that one. So let's debrief. Please review these question prompts here, and let's share out a little bit. Do you think any of these activities would have helped students understand the why? What ideas do you have to help students understand the why, and that could be useful to another educator here with us? Or do you see the value of dedicating time to building the skills around understanding point of view? So I'll give you a moment to think about those questions, and when ready, you can share out with us, and that'd be greatly appreciated. And Mary said, I like the find evidence in the text support your view. to support your view. Great. We're seeing a lot of that in all of the inquiry based curriculum that or things, ways that we're moving to, especially like in the C3 of the inquiry arc, where you have to find and cite evidence.
So going back to that first question you asked about, of course, the dog barks now. Sorry.
Of course, right?
Yeah, if I mute, it's because the house erupts. Do you think any of these activities would have helped students understand the why? I do think that these do help understand the why, because students are so often hearing only that one point. I know I'm not going to admit how long ago school was, but we only learned that one side. And it wasn't until I fell in love with history that I went out and reached others. This way, we're hearing not only just from other points of view, but they're hearing from real people, the blue collared workers and everything like that, which I think is also an important aspect of seeing the points of view.
Sure. Great. Thank you. That's really great input. Thank you so much. Would anybody else like to share out? Do you have any ideas that will help students understand the why? Do you see the value of dedicating time to build these skills around understanding the point of view? I think Kelly has some great points about that. Let me go to the chat as well. I teach high school. I think this would have been a great activity when discussing opinions of hawks versus doves, as we are currently studying Vietnam War. Okay, great. Thank you, Patricia. If you teach point of view on a celebration day, watch Hoodwinked, same story of multiple points of view, then later build on it with lessons. Oh, great. So great information for the educators here that Mary has. Anybody else? I'll give just a couple more seconds if anybody else wants to add anything as we have to wrap up, because we have some other sessions that are going to be coming next. Yes, understanding that points of view vary is a highly important point of view. History is not clean and wrapped up in a bow. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So great. I'm glad you guys see the value in that. So at the beginning, we posed essential questions to wrestle with, and here are the essential questions. And again, these transcend a specific event in our timeless. So I want to leave this thought with you guys as you leave our session today. After the activities we modeled today that helped identify and understand the why of people's point of view, do you think your students may be more prepared to think critically and wrestle with these types of questions? We don't need to share our answers into the group, but hopefully this was helpful to you. And I also hope you found something here that you can incorporate into your classroom. So as we wrap up, I just want to say that using maps and graphs are timeless and timelines, and pictures can all help tell us a historical narrative by describing different points of view in an event or story. And if you need help finding some of these tools, we can help. All the content used today was from our K-5 program called Nystrom Young Citizens. And these are some components that we have in our program. We have a teacher's guide, some student handouts. We have markable desk maps. If you see a World US desk map, the community desk maps, leveled readers. We have those in 4 levels for 1 through 5th grade and 2 levels for kindergarten. And we have a student text that's kind of built around a comic, but has a lot of great information in it, and it's all rooted in inquiry. Thank you, Nicole.
I just
go ahead.
Thank you so much. It was a great session, but I've got to
Oh.
run.
Oh,
Take care.
great.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. I just wanted to also let you guys know that if you wanted to download this lesson, you can go download it at go.socialstudies.com/Michigan. And if you want any other examples of that, but we are at www.socialstudies.com. So it's really easy. It's just www. So thank you so much for your input and for participating, Mary, and for everyone else. So if we wrap up, if we have any other questions or any other input, I'd be happy to hear it. But thank you guys so much for participating, for your input in this session. And I hope some of this has been helpful to you.
Thank you. This was very nice.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to
Appreciate
hear it. Thank you, Kelly.
Have a lovely night.
You too. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't have I think I have you. Do I have your first name? Let's see. I'm going to go back up in the chat. Evelyn, thank you so much, Evelyn. You're coming up as E. E.
Yeah, E. Kreutz. I don't know why my first name is not there, but that last name of Kreutz. Thank you so very much. So funny, I have done almost that exact lesson with whiteboards. So then I would put it up on I love to teach with PowerPoint. That's just my thing. That's how my mentor taught me.
Okay.
So I had it up on the board, and then the kids would have to either have a L, a P, or an N on their whiteboard and hold it up. And that also then gives, when it's done that way, I love the way you're doing it too, because they get up out of their seats and can move to different areas is awesome too. But that also gives an idea of how much of the class is actually on board with where we are and how much more in depth we have to get, just in case we have everybody put loyalist up and it's a patriot. So
absolutely. So I think that's a great way to do a quick formative assessment for the students to use those whiteboards. That's a great idea.
Yes.
I'll actually share that in my next session as something that, other teachers would do. So thank you for that.
Great. You have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, it looks like we have, if anybody else like to share out, I'd be happy to hear that, or else we will be ending the session. So thank you again for everyone who joined us. And you guys have a wonderful evening and a great rest of the conference.